mom had breast cancer cut out at an early stage, avoided chemo. The cancer was caused by high estrogen. She eats low-fat, high plant-based diet and also suffering from weak bones. She has also had gallbladder removed. Help, please. Yeah, so, I mean, it is the case that, plants use estrogenic disruptors. They have hormonal disruptors, and a lot of those mimic estrogen. And so soy milk, or soy in general, has a lot of estrogen. So 3 ounces of soy has about half the amount of estrogen that a fertile woman would make in a day. And about, 8 or 9 times as much estrogen as the birth control pill. So it's a lot of estrogen. In fact, this is in the published literature that men have actually grown breasts by drinking as little as 8 glasses of soy milk a day, or as much as 8 glasses of soy milk a day, because that's horrifying. But that's how much estrogen is in there. Flaxseed as well, tons of estrogen, and a lot of other things as well have high estrogen. Meat does not have high estrogen. Meat has non-hormone treated beef. For 3 ounces of lean beef has about 1.3 nanograms of estrogen in it. Hormone treated beef has 1.9 nanograms. Okay, so it's a 50% increase. But soy has 200,000 nanograms per 3 ounces, right? And a birth control pill is 35,000, and a woman makes nearly 500,000. So, big difference there. Meat does not contribute to untoward estrogen levels. It just optimizes hormones in everybody if eaten on its own. So low fat, not a great idea either. You need the fat. It's very good for your body. It's very good for your brain. Your brain's made out of it. And she has weak bones because she's doing that. Unfortunately, the body is made out of meat, and we need certain specific nutrients really from meat that are going to help us build and maintain meat. And we can't do that from plants. You can't, it's very difficult to turn plant tissue into animal tissue. It's a completely different form of life. And, some animals can do it, but we are not those animals. And so the reason she has weak bones is because she's eating these plants. They have a lot of anti-nutrients, things like oxalates, which strip out the calcium from her blood. And so in order to not die, her body strips calcium from her bones to raise her calcium levels in her blood again, because under a certain level of calcium, your heart stops. Goes into tetany, just locks up. It just cramps. It's like a giant muscle cramp, but it's your heart, right? So that's game over right there. And so that is a direct consequence of eating these plants and getting these anti-nutrients in the plants. And so if she removes those plants, she starts eating fatty meat, which is what we're biologically designed to eat. She will reduce her estrogen load from those phytoestrogens, and she will improve her bone density. I have seen people with osteoporosis, elderly ladies with osteoporosis, reverse that in a year of a carnivore diet with resistance exercises. The resistance is important because you're pushing through there. Your body heals and grows in lines of stress. So you work on a muscle in a certain direction, you're working that muscle grows. It's working the bones in there too. You're stimulating the bones to grow and to support that direction of movement and force and weight bearing, right? So you need the stimulus, but you also need the right nutrition, and you need to stay out of your own way. Look up Pottinger's cats. It's very interesting. They fed cats cooked meat and raw meat and massively different health outcomes. The cooked meat cats were far less healthy, and each generation they got smaller and smaller brains, less developed skeleton, smaller stature, and poorer health and less bone mineralization. So exactly the same amount of calcium in cooked meat as raw meat, but just something about the nutrition changed, and their body wasn't able to mineralize the bones properly. It went from like 14% first generation, starting out, to then 7%, big drop. And then the next generation was 3%. And the researchers said their bones were like the consistency of foam rubber when they looked at them on autopsy. That's pretty crazy. And some of these poor little kittens had like upwards of 30 fractures at any given time. It was horrible. And that's what you're doing right? If you disrupt how your body normally works, your body can't work properly. And so even if there's enough calcium available, your body's just not able to regulate it properly, like in Pottinger's cats. So that's what you need to do. No gallbladder. Why does she have no gallbladder? Because she's been eating a low-fat diet. Your gallbladder stores bile, but it concentrates there because you don't necessarily get, predators don't necessarily eat every day. And so you have to sort of store this stuff and concentrate it so that you have a lot available, so that when you do get food, you can absorb a lot of fat. You can absorb as much fat as your body needs in that one go. And if you just don't eat fat or eat very little fat, it sits there and it gets more and more concentrated. And what happens to any hyper-concentrated solution at rest? Forms crystals, forms precipitate, right? That's what bile sludge is. That's what gallstones are. And so that's why she had that. If you eat enough fat, as in as much fat as your body has bile for, it's physically impossible to form a gallstone. Even if you were going to form a stone in one day, which you don't, that wouldn't be compatible with life. You'd be dead in the womb. Even then, if you just ate enough fat, that you had all the fat that you had bile for every day, it still wouldn't form stones. You couldn't do it. There is no bile in the gallbladder to form a stone. So unfortunately, the reason that she doesn't have a gallbladder anymore is because she was following the diet that she's currently following right now. And so that hasn't done her any good. And I'm sorry to say it probably led to her cancer as well. If you have healthy mitochondria, you can't get cancer. A lot of these plants have toxins that directly damage the mitochondria, and there's a lot of other things as well. There's genetic issues that can cause damage to the mitochondria, also other environmental things, but also just not being in a ketogenic metabolic state. Your insulin is high all the time, and you can't go about autophagy and replacing your mitochondria as they're getting sort of broken down and broken down and broken down. Eventually, you need to replace them. You say, okay, well, that one's junked. We need to scrap it and make a new one, right? That's called that's part of autophagy. It's called mitophagy. And you don't need to fast to do that. You just need to stop eating carbs, because it's insulin. High insulin blocks autophagy. And so if you just get your insulin down, you're in autophagy and mitophagy all the time. And so in 3-4 months on a carnivore diet, a ketogenic meat-based diet, like a carnivore diet, studies have shown that you'll have 4 times the number of mitochondria, and they're 4 times as effective. So you'll keep your mitochondria healthy, you'll keep your body healthy, you'll keep your brain healthy, and you generally won't get cancer, because you're not doing the things that insult your body to the extent that they're going to get cancer. Having a gallbladder removed now is still not a problem going carnivore, even high-fat carnivore, because her liver is still making bile. It's just that it's making it just dripping out constantly. So she may have to split up her fatty meals. If she eats a more fat and she gets basically loose stools from that, that's because her body just wasn't able to absorb that fat and it just comes out. Fine. Okay. So don't eat as much fat. Split that up throughout the day. But a lot of people form what's called a pseudo gallbladder, which is an outpouching of the common bile duct. It works exactly like a gallbladder does. And so she may have that. So if she eats a big meal with fat in it and she doesn't get loose stools, doesn't running to the toilet 30 minutes later, then that's probably what happened, and she'll be fine. So just listen to her body. But hopefully she hears this and listens to this and gives it a try, because I think it will absolutely revolutionize her health. It's all about what we are designed for. Humans have been cooking meat for at least 800,000 years over an open fire, and potentially using ovens 800,000 years ago, and cooking with fire potentially as much as 1.5 million or even 2+ million years, right? So that's a long time. That's 500,000 years minimum